what do we mean by receipt of enquiry? So whenever there is an exporter in a country, so he will be receiving lot of enquiries from the overseas. So once the exporter receives the letter of credit from the importer's bank, then he will approach his own bank in order to get the pre-shipment finance. While sending the quotations, he has to mention what is the price at which he is ready to pay and also what are the other terms and conditions related to the contract. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In this session 5, we will be having a discussion on what is the export procedure. Now, we all know that in international business, there will be a lot of export activities and import activities. And in this session, we will be having a discussion on what is the export procedure. Now, in this export procedure, we have the first step, that is the receipt of enquiry and sending the quotations. Now, what do we mean by receipt of enquiry? So whenever there is an exporter in a country, so he will be receiving lot of enquiries from the overseas. So the buyers who are interested in purchase of his product, they will be sending enquiries regarding the type of product, the quality of the product, quantity of the product, terms and conditions and mode of payment and how the goods will be transported to the particular country. So they will ask all the details about this to the exporter. Now the exporter, he can just send the details in person or he can always put an advertisement relating to his products. So in this way, the prospective buyer will be having an idea of what the exporter is actually selling, or the exporter can also fill in the pro forma invoice, or he may send an invoice to the prospective buyer where he will be mentioning all the queries or he will be answering all the queries asked by the prospective buyer. So this is the first step in the export procedure, that is receipt of enquiry and sending the quotations. Now while sending the quotations, he has to mention what is the price at which he is ready to pay and also what are the other terms and conditions related to the contract. So what are the packing conditions asked by the prospective buyer, and also he will be mentioning about the modes of payment, and since it is an overseas trade, they will have to decide about what is the rate of the foreign exchange at which the payment has to be made. So all these things have to be clarified between the exporter and the prospective buyer. Then the second one is receipt of order or indent. Now what do we mean by receipt of order or indent? So once the prospective buyer, he receives a pro forma invoice or he receives any communication from the exporter, then if he is agreeable to the terms and conditions laid down in that particular invoice, then he may place an order. So once he places an order, so he will be mentioning about the kind of goods he wants and also the terms and conditions at which he wants the goods, and also the type of packing he wants and when the goods are to be submitted, how he is making the payment and what are the various modes through which the exporter has to send the goods. So in this, he will be just placing an order with the particular exporter. So once the exporter receives the order or indent, so this order which the exporter receives from the prospective buyer, we call it as the indent. So this indent will be the basis on which the exporter will start working on. So this is the second step in the process of export procedure. Now the third step is assessing the importer's credit worthiness and securing a guarantee for payment. What do we mean by this? So in this, we will be making enquiries about how reliable that person is. So about the prospective buyer, so we will be collecting lot of information. So in this, we will be just having preliminary enquiry about whether this person, importer, is eligible for any sort of credit or not. Now, since the exporter will be in another country and the importer will be in another country, then the exporter will ask the importer's bank to send a letter of credit. Now, what is this letter of credit? So, letter of credit is nothing but a letter of guarantee. Now, what does it guarantee? So, the importer's bank will guarantee to pay the certain sum of money of the order in case the importer does not make a payment on that particular export order. So, it is an undertaking given by the importer's bank stating that it will agree, it has guaranteed to pay a certain amount to the exporter in case the importer fails to make the payment on such an export. So, this is assessing the credit worthiness and securing the guarantee for payment. So, this guarantee for payment can be secured through the LOC, that is the letter of credit. Now, the next procedure is obtaining export license. Now, it has been made mandatory by the Indian government for all the exporters to get the export license before they start exporting the goods to other nations. Now, what are the prerequisites to get the export license? The first thing is the importer should have opened a bank account. So, he should open a bank account with any bank which is authorized by the RBI. So, this is the first prerequisite for getting the export license. Then the second one is he should have the export import code number, IEC code or the import export code, so which will be given by the Indian government. Then the third one is he has to register himself with the Export Promotion Council, that is the EPC, and lastly he should also be registered with the ECGC, that is Export Credit and Guarantee Council. So, if he has got all the documents relating to these, then he can apply for the export license. Now, once he applies for the export license, he will get the export import code number. So, this export import code number he will have to make use of in all the documents which he will be submitting to get the export license. Now, this IEC code, that is the import export code, it will be issued by the DGF3, that is the Directorate General of Foreign Trade. So, they will be issuing the import export code number, and this import export code number is a very essential code number for all the documents. So, he will have to make a reference to this code number. So, whenever he engages in this export trade, it is obligatory for all the exporters to become a member of the Export Promotion Council. So, this Export Promotion Council is one council which promotes the exports, and in case he becomes a member of this EPC, then he is entitled to several privileges. Then lastly, he should also be registered under the ECGC. Now, what is this ECGC? Export Credit and Guarantee Control. So, in this, if he becomes a member of this ECGC, then he will be assured of his payment. So, he will not have any risk regarding the payment for the goods which he has exported. So, it will guarantee that this payment will be made to this exporter in case the importer fails to pay the money. So, these are the 4 steps involved in export procedure. The next step is obtaining the pre-shipment finance. Now, what is this pre-shipment finance? Once the exporter receives the letter of credit from the importer's bank, then he will approach his own bank in order to get the pre-shipment finance. So what is this pre-shipment finance for? So this finance will help the exporter in production. So whatever the order he has received from the prospective buyer, he will start production of that particular order, and the finance for that will be given by the banker. So that finance with which he starts the production for the order, that is what we call as the pre-shipment finance. Then the next step is a production or procurement of goods. So in this production or procurement of goods, we should understand that the exporter will start procuring the goods which are to be exported. So in case it is a manufacturing concern, he will start buying all the raw materials which he needs for production, and then he will make an assessment of the production capacity of the plant. If the production capacity of the plant is sufficient, then he will start going ahead with the production. So in case the production facility is not sufficient, then he may go in for outsourcing, but there should not be any compromise on the quality of such goods produced. So once he starts production, so all the production of goods will be as per the specifications of this particular prospective buyer. So this is the next step in export procedure. Then the next step is pre-shipment inspection. Now what is this pre-shipment inspection? So once the goods are ready for exports, then it has been made mandatory by the Indian government to see that the goods are inspected. So they will appoint an inspector who will be seeing whether the quality of the goods are up to the mark. So whatever the goods are to be exported, they will be checked by this quality inspector, and he will assess whether the quality of goods are up to the mark or whether they are eligible for exports. So this has become a mandatory because some of the export trading houses, they are not keeping up with the quality of the goods, and hence this has become mandatory for the Indian government to appoint an inspector to look after the inspection of the goods. Once the goods are inspected, and if it passes the quality check, only then such goods can be exported to the foreign countries. Now, this inspection of goods can be undertaken for any of the export houses, but then it is not necessary for the star trading houses. Now, what are these star trading houses? So, these are those exporting firms which get the star mark and they need not be inspected. So any export, any production of goods which are done by the star trading houses, or if they are done by under the SEZ, that is the Special Economic Zone, or if any of the goods are from the SEZs or the export processing zones or the export oriented units, then they need not get any inspection certificate. But for all other exports of goods, inspection certificate is necessary before the goods are being exported. Then the next step in the export procedure is excise clearance. Now what is this excise clearance? So it is imposed on all the raw materials which are used for the producing the goods which are being exported. So this excise duty is a duty which is refundable. So under the duty drawback scheme of the government. So once the exporter pays this excise duty, he can always get a duty drawback once he starts exporting the goods. So this kind of excise clearance certificate should be given by the government when the exporter pays the excise duty on such raw materials. And then this excise clearance is necessary whenever the goods are being exported. Now this kind of excise duty can be exempted for export oriented units, or the government refunds any excise duty which is collected for these kind of goods which are being exported. Now the director of duty drawback, he can always make use of this drawback of duty whenever the exporter has paid any excise duty on the goods which he has produced exclusively for exports. Then the next procedure in this is obtaining the certificate of origin. Now this letter of certificate of origin is necessary whenever the importer's country has any restriction on import of goods from certain countries. So, however, this depends on the bilateral trade relations between the two nations. So, this certification of origin is necessary to certify that these goods have come from a country which the importer's country has good trade relations. Then the next procedure in export is reservation of the shipping space. Now once the goods are ready for dispatch, then the next step is the importer has to make necessary arrangements for shipping the goods to the importer's country. Now for shipping the goods, he has to make proper reservation for the space in the ship. Now this he will be doing with the help of reservation of shipping space. Then the next one is packing and forwarding. Now what is the meaning of packing and forwarding? Whenever the goods are to be exported, they have to have additional packing. So why? Because these goods will be traveling for a very long time and then it has to be received by the importer in good form, and therefore it is essential for the exporter to give proper packing for these goods. So then he will be forwarding the goods to the importer's country, and where the importer will receive the goods along with the other documents of export. Then next one is insurance of goods. So the goods will be traveling in the sea for a very long time and there are a lot of dangers which are there when the shipment is going on the sea. So there are a lot of risks involved in marine trade against which the exporter has to insure himself, and this he can get it insured with the help of proper insurance. So he can take proper insurance where the risks involved in the goods are properly taken care of by the insurance company. Then the next step in the export process is the customs clearance. Now this customs duty has to be paid by the exporter whenever the goods are being exported to a foreign country. So once the exporter pays the customs duty, the customs official will issue a customs clearance receipt. In this customs clearance, we should understand that the customs official will give the clearance only when the exporter gives the shipping bill. Now what does this shipping bill contain? The shipping bill is a document which contains all the details about the goods. Customs official will give clearance for the customs when he receives the shipping bill. Now what is this shipping bill? The shipping bill is a document which contains the type of product which is being exported. Then it will also contain the name of the ship in which it will be exported and the ports in which the goods are to be discharged, and then it will also mention about the country where the goods reach the final destination. So all these details regarding the goods will be filled in the shipping bill which has to be submitted to get the customs clearance. Now along with the shipping bill, the customer or the exporter has to give the following documents. So the shipping bill should accompany 5 copies of the following documents. Now what are the documents here? The first one is the export order. Second one is the letter of credit from the importer's banker. Third one is the certificate of origin. Fourth one is the certificate of inspection, and the next one is he will have to get the certificate of inspection. Then next one is he should also get a insurance policy, marine insurance policy for the goods which will be going through sea. So in this way, when he submits all the documents and the customs official is fully satisfied that this exporter has met all the necessary rules and regulations, then he gives a clearance for the customs official. So this customs clearance can be granted to the exporter. Then next one is obtaining the mate's receipt. So once the customs clearance document is being received by the exporter, then he will just see that the goods are loaded on board the ship. Now this customs clearance can be received by the exporter when he gets the shipping bill. Now this shipping bill will contain the details of the goods which are being exported. Then it will also contain the vessel in or the ship in which the goods are being exported, the ports where the goods will be discharged, and the final destination of the goods. Now along with, after he gets this shipping bill, so he will also have to produce 5 copies of documents relating to this. Now what are the 5 documents which has to be submitted? The first one is the export order. So copy of the export order should be attached. Then second one is he should also have the letter of credit. So this letter of credit will be issued by the importer's banker. Then the next one is he should also get the letter of origin. So letter of origin also of the goods he has to get. Then he has to get the inspection certificate from the concerned inspective agency, and then he will also have to get the copy of the marine insurance policy. So once all these are submitted, then the exporter has to approach the superintendent of the port. So he will issue the carting order. Now this carting order is there. It is a permission given by the superintendent for the goods to enter the dock of that particular port. Once the goods enter the dock, they will be there in a proper shed until it will be loaded into the ship. Now this carting order is necessary for loading the goods into the ship. Now this carting order has to be obtained. Now since the exporter is not in a position to look after all these things, he can always hire a C&F agent. So clearing and forwarding agent who will look into all the formalities relating to this part of the export. The next procedure for export is obtaining the mate's receipt. Now what is this mate's receipt? So once the goods are loaded on board the ship, so this mate's receipt will be issued by the commanding officer of the ship. Now in this mate's receipt, it will be mentioned about the goods which are on board the ship, the name of the ship in which the goods are being loaded, the condition in which the goods are being loaded, the numbers and other marks, the packaging details, etc. So all these details will be included in this mate's receipt. Then next one is payment of freight and issuance of bill of lading. So once goods are loaded on board the ship, then the exporter will have to make the payment of freight. So what is this payment of freight? So this is the charge for carrying the goods from this port to the foreign country's port, and this freight charges has to be paid by the exporter, or it depends on the terms and conditions of the exporter and the importer. So once he gives the freight receipt, then the shipping company will issue the bill of lading. So this bill of lading is a very important document based on which the importer can claim the goods which are in the ship. This bill of lading serves as an evidence that the shipping company has agreed to take the shipment of goods from one port to the other port, and this is an important document which has to be submitted by the importer in order to claim the goods which are being shipped in that particular ship. The next step is preparation of invoice. In this preparation of invoice, the exporter, after loading the goods on board the ship, he has to prepare this document. So in this invoice, he will be mentioning about the quantity of goods supplied, and also he will be making a mention about the amount which has to be remitted by the importer. Now the C&F agent has to get this document duly cleared by the customs authorities. Then the last procedure is securing payment. Now the exporter can get payment of the goods once he submitted all the documents to the importer. Now a bill of exchange is an order to the importer to pay a certain amount of money to or the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. It can be two types of documents: the documents against cite, that is the cite draft, or the document against acceptance, that is the usance draft. So with the help of this bill of exchange, the exporter is able to secure the payment of his order. And then in case of cite draft, the documents are handed over to the importer only against payment. So once the goods reaches the importer's port, then the importer can make the payment of the goods, and then this is done only when a cite draft is issued. The moment the importer agrees to cite draft, the relevant documents are delivered. So whatever are the document relating to the ship, so that will be delivered to the importer. So in case of the usance draft, on the other hand, the documents are delivered to the importer against his or her acceptance of the bill of exchange for making payment, so that at the end of the specified period, say 3 months. So this usance draft will be, when it is signed by the importer that he has agreed to make the payment after 3 months, only then the documents of this export rate will be handed over to the importer. On receiving the bill of exchange, the importer releases the payment in case of cite draft or accepts the usance draft for making payment on maturity of the bill of exchange. So whether if it is a cite draft, then the importer will immediately make the payment, but if it is a usance draft, then the importer will have to give an acceptance, only then he will get the documents. So the exporter's bank receives the payment through the importer's bank and it is credited to the exporter's account. So whenever there is an exchange of money, so it will be credited to the exporter's bank. Then exporter, however, need not wait for the payment in case till the release of money by the importer. So he can get immediate payment from his or her bank on the submission of documents by signing a letter of indemnity. So now the exporter has already executed his part of the contract, and now he has to just get the payment for that, but he need not wait for the importer. So he can always get the payment immediately from his or her bank by submitting the letter of indemnity. Then, having received the payment for exports, the exporter needs to get a bank certificate for payment. So he will have to get a bank certificate for payment. So with this, the export procedure is ending. Hope you have all understood this export procedure. Thank you.